This candlestick chart is the single greatest weapon Japan ever invented. The Western financial world first met this legendary Japanese weapon in 1991. Today, using this exact system, more than $10 billion change hands every single day. More money than the GDP of an entire nation. Millions of investors sit in dark rooms, staring at the red and green candles on their screens, trusting a lifetime of savings to the shapes those candles make. But very few people know that the man who supposedly invented this chart is nothing but a lie. They call him Munehisa Homma, the god of the markets, the greatest trader who ever lived. Modern investors build their entire careers on his teachings. They buy expensive courses sold in his name. They gamble their family's futures on his so-called genius. And the whole time, they are pouring their money, blindly, into a 300-year-old, ruthless machine. So if the god of the markets never actually existed, who is really pulling the strings behind the chart on your screen? Follow the money. It will show you the truth. To understand the man, you have to understand the ruthless machine that made him. For about 100 years, Japan tore itself apart. Lords fought lords over land, with no end in sight. But when the dust finally settled and the country was unified, peace did something strange. It turned a nation of honorable soldiers into a nation of cutthroat traders. And here is the crazy part. In this Japan, money was rice. Lords were paid in rice. Farmers were taxed in rice. And the single city where all that wealth was counted, stored, and sold was Osaka. They called it the kitchen of Japan. But a lord with a mountain of rice had a problem. He couldn't eat a mountain. He couldn't carry it around in his pocket to spend it. So he shipped it to a warehouse in Osaka and took back a slip of paper, a coupon. That piece of paper said the rice was his, sitting safe in storage, and he could trade it whenever he liked. Then someone had a dangerous idea, an idea that changed global finance forever. Traders started selling coupons for rice they hadn't even grown yet, rice from next year's harvest. Sometimes from harvests years away. You could literally buy and sell a promise of rice that was still buried in the dirt. And before you laugh at a man selling a crop that doesn't exist, take a look at your own credit card debt. You have probably done the same thing. You spent money you haven't earned yet. Maybe a car you're still making payments on. Maybe a house the bank owns more of than you do. We work all year, and somehow the paycheck is gone before it even lands, because we already spent it. 300 years later, most of us are still living on a harvest that hasn't even hit the ground yet. A war merchant named Yodoya ran the first version of this out of his own front yard. He was brilliant at pricing these invisible crops, and he became unimaginably rich. The government saw how much power this paper market held, and they were terrified. A few decades earlier, when a group tried to corner the market, the punishment wasn't just a fine. Their children were executed, the merchants were exiled, and everything they owned was destroyed. So when Yodoya climbed too high, the shogun simply seized it all. This wasn't just trading, it was a matter of life and death. And yet, out of the bloody soil of Yodoya's front yard, the Dojima Rice Exchange was born. By 1730, the shogun's government gave up fighting it and made it official. Sit with that for a second. While Wall Street was still nothing but mud, and Europe was a century away from anything like it, the traders of Osaka were already buying and selling the future. Dojima became the first true futures exchange in human history. This is the machine. Remember how it works, because the legend is about to walk in, and he's going to try to steal the whole story. His name was Munehisa Homma. He was born in 1724 into a rice trading family so insanely wealthy that ordinary people made a saying about them. "I'll never become a Homma," they said, "but I'd settle for being a local lord." When his father died, the family broke with tradition. They didn't hand the empire to the eldest son. They handed it to Munehisa, the youngest. Why? Because the boy could read a market like nobody else, and he had an edge modern investors would kill for. Because his family owned a massive estate, he knew the harvest numbers before the market did. He tracked the weather going back years. But he also built a private network that sounds impossible for the 1700s. He stationed men with flags on rooftops at set intervals across the country, so a price move in Osaka could be flashed roof to roof all the way to his hometown, faster than any horse could ride. Still, it wasn't speed or weather that made him a legend. What made him a genius was a dangerous realization. Homma noticed that markets weren't driven by supply and demand alone. They were driven by human emotion, fear, greed, panic, hope. He believed that if you could study those emotions the way you study the weather, you could see the next crash coming before it hit. He left behind one rule that Wall Street traders still repeat today. When everyone is bearish, that alone is a reason for prices to rise. The story goes that he ran off 100 winning trades in a row. He became so powerful that the shogun made him a financial advisor and granted him the honored title of samurai. There was even a folk song about his reach. When it's sunny in Homma's town, it went, it's raining in Edo. When he won, the whole country felt it. He died in 1803, a rich and famous man. And according to the legend, his trading ideas grew into the Candlestick chart, those red and green candles you see on every screen today. The chart you pull up tonight to check Apple stock or watch Bitcoin. All of it, supposedly, traces back to a single genius in a Japanese rice market. It's a beautiful story. Now, let me show you the documents. Go back and read the legend carefully, and you start to notice something strange. The language goes soft in all the important places. The man who carried Homma's name to the rest of the world was an American trader named Steve Nison, who introduced the West to candlesticks with a book in 1991. Read his words closely. He doesn't say Homma made 100 winning trades. He says it was said he made them. He doesn't say Homma wrote his famous books. He says they were said to have been written by him. Every huge claim comes wrapped in "someone else told me so." Then there's the ultimate proof itself, a book called The Fountain of Gold. Wall Street holds it up as the first book ever written on the psychology of trading, and for decades the Western financial world has credited it to Munehisa Homma. The problem is, in Japan, they don't. The National Diet Library, which is Japan's version of the Library of Congress, credits that exact book to a completely different man, Ushida Gonsaburo. So does the main Japanese academic database. So does the Kyoto University archive. So do the local records in Homma's own hometown. The book that supposedly proves Homma was the father of trading psychology was, by Japan's own official records, written by someone else entirely. The whole mix-up seems to have started with those Western trading books in the 1990s, and it lives almost entirely in the English language. Japanese scholars never had this confusion. We invented the myth, and then we built a financial god on top of it. And the candlestick chart? That tool that supposedly came straight out of his mind? It didn't appear fully formed in the 1700s. The method took shape slowly, over generations, by thousands of nameless hands, and almost no one outside Japan had even heard of it until 1991. So here's where the records actually leave us. Homma was real. He was rich, he was sharp, and he traded on that floor. But the lone genius who single-handedly invented the market, the chart, and the science of trading psychology? That man is mostly a painting, a legend brushed over a smaller, quieter truth. Which brings us to the only question that matters. If the genius is a myth, then what actually created and destroyed all those fortunes? The answer isn't a person, it's the machine, the exchange itself. Let me tell you something that should stop you cold. This rice market, running back in the 1700s, was no primitive medieval bazaar. It was a hyper-advanced financial engine with nearly everything Wall Street has today. Only members could trade on it. The contracts were strictly standardized, so everyone traded the exact same unit. Every trader had to put down cash to back their positions before taking them, the very same thing modern brokers call margin. And in the middle of it all sat a clearinghouse that stood between every buyer and every seller, checking positions and guaranteeing every single deal. If that sounds familiar, it should. This is the exact skeleton of the exchange your broker uses right now. The Japanese built it 300 years ago out of rice coupons in a city most people in the West couldn't even find on a map. And here's the hard truth. A machine like that doesn't need a genius. It just needs rules. The standardized contracts didn't care whether Homma was brilliant. The clearinghouse didn't care about his rooftop flags. The system printed fortunes and buried men by its own ruthless logic. And it would have done exactly that whether or not a famous trader was shouting on the floor. Homma didn't build the machine. He was just one of the more memorable players it chewed up and spat back out rich. This is the part the legend hides. We love the lone genius story because the human brain is lazy. It's easier to follow one man than to understand a vast, complicated system. And you do this too. Your father probably had a hot stock tip once from some guy at work who swore he had the whole thing figured out. Now you've got the same guy. He just lives inside your phone, posting every morning about the trade that's going to change your life. The face changes with every generation. The hunger to find one genius to follow never does. But it was never about the man. It was about the machine. Watch what happens next, because this is the ultimate proof. Homma died in 1803. The shogun's government, the regime that built the exchange and feared its own traders, collapsed in 1868. Both the man and the empire were wiped off the face of the earth. But the machine didn't even blink. A new government opened a fresh rice exchange in Tokyo. Then, in 1873, Japan bought telegraph technology from Britain and ran a line between Tokyo and Osaka. The flag runners Homma once put on rooftops became copper wire. As the telegraph spread, the two great markets locked together, and a price move in one city reached the other the instant it happened. The system didn't die with its god. It just upgraded its nervous system and kept going. And it's still going. That chart you pull up tonight to check Apple stock, or to watch some crypto coin you bought on a gut feeling at 2 in the morning, those green and red candles grew straight out of the soil of this very rice market. The one thing Homma truly understood, that a price is just fear and greed wearing the disguise of a number, runs every screen on Earth today. Think about why paper money even works. The banknote in your pocket has no real value. We only trade real things for it because everyone agrees it's worth something. The moment that shared belief breaks, the paper is worthless. A market is the same trick, just scaled up. It runs entirely on what people believe, and belief can turn on a single rainy afternoon. That is the real lesson hidden behind the myth of Munehisa Homma. The people who lose in markets spend their whole lives hunting for the next genius to follow. The people who survive study the machine instead, because the machine doesn't need you to believe in it. It reads the crowd's emotions and controls them. And that crowd is you. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. I'll bring every hidden piece of financial history to light, just for you.